Hey everyone, it's Phil. It's the middle of the week, and so it's a good time for us to check in as we've been doing for quite a few weeks now. And I hope you're keeping well, finding ways to keep yourself occupied, but also rested and healthy. I know here at our home we are finding new projects, cleaning out corners of the house, but also we've been learning some new things too. My son and I decided to take up a new language. We're learning Welsh. My wife has been honing her baking skills. My daughter, even though she's finished school, has been doing reading up on her area of study. We just love to keep learning. And you probably know this, and if you don't, it's an important piece of information. The word disciple means a learner. When we say that we're followers of Jesus Christ, we are declaring ourselves lifelong learners in his footsteps. And it's gotten me thinking a lot about a learning experience that God's people did a long time ago. We read about it when we get to the end of 2 Kings, the end of 2 Chronicles, and into a number of the prophetic books like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. And that's the period of the exile, where God allowed his people to be conquered. After years of them ignoring him or inconsistently following him, he allowed them to be conquered. He allowed them to be taken away into exile, taken away as foreigners in a strange land. And when that happened, the nation of Israel didn't quite know what to do with themselves. For one thing, their temple was destroyed. That had been the center of their lives. They were used to gathering there. They were used to going through the rituals of worship there. That was taken away. And the automatic response for a lot of those Jewish exiles, when they were far away in the city of Babylon, was to basically sit on their suitcases and wait for God to take them back home. They weren't prepared to learn anything new. They just figured this would end soon and they could go back to the way things were. And then in Jeremiah chapter 29, God actually sends a message through Jeremiah to the exiles in which he tells them, you need to get used to this. You are not going back anytime soon. He doesn't exactly say this, but it's almost like he says, you need to learn a new language. You need to learn the language of exile. You need to learn the language of Babylon because I want you to settle in there. I want you to put down roots there, build lives for yourselves there, and learn a new way of living. I think today we're in a similar situation. We find ourselves in a whole new world. We don't understand it entirely. We are struggling to get used to it. And again, I've said it before, many of us really just are putting in time until things go back to usual, to normal. I don't think we can count on that. I don't think that's a productive use of our time. I think like the exiles, we need to hear the message through Jeremiah and say, it's time to put down roots, find a way to live in this new existence, and even learn the language of pandemic, if you will. Of course, I don't mean actually learning a new language. What I mean is that it's time for us to learn some things that maybe we didn't notice before. You know, I've been noticing some things. I've noticed how much we depended on our Sunday morning experience for our connections. I'm noticing how much we depended on our building for our ministries. I'm noticing as well that we depended an awful lot on what we experienced in the building and on Sunday morning for how we felt. You know, we felt good when there were a lot of people in the building. And now we don't have those kinds of things to measure. And, you know, really, it's not about a feeling anyway. If you look at the exiles' experience, they felt terribly, incredibly sad because their homeland had been taken away from them. And loved ones had been killed or they'd been separated from them. They were very sad, but they were exactly where God wanted them to be, where God needed them to be. There's an incredible story that comes out of the exile, and that's that while the Jewish nation had been used to gathering in one temple to worship, and then that was taken away, when they were in Babylon and they finally accepted God's message that they needed to put down roots, learn the language, get used to this, something grew out of that. They started to gather in small clusters around the city of Babylon, around the empire where they'd been scattered, Instead of one building where they all flocked to, there were these little gatherings, and it came to be known by the word synagogue. We still have synagogues today. God reformed the Jewish nation and allowed them to be a resilient community because they started to know how to gather wherever they were. Right now, we can't be physically together, but we've been letting you know, and I want to let you know again about the opportunity for us to gather online. Maybe this is the new synagogue. This is the way for us to gather in small clusters and be God's people, support one another, even though we're not in that building on Sunday morning or in our midweek programs. We get to be God's people and a resilient people who can withstand whatever upheaval comes along because we know how to connect, we know how to adapt, and we will not be the same moving forward. I think it's a course correction for all of us, but more on that next week. So stay tuned, stay safe, and let's stay the course together because life in Jesus Christ is worth it.